Google just launched Nano Banana 2, and they're making some big claims. Better world knowledge, text that actually works, and character consistency. Instead of just reading you the blog post, I went through every claim, tested it, and I'm going to show you what's improved. Also, how it compares to GPT 1.5, Nano Banana Pro, and the original model, and give you some of the best use cases for it. Let's get into it. Nano Banana 2 is the successor to the original model that launched last August and went viral for its quality and ease of use natively inside Gemini. Then came Nano Banana Pro with even better quality, but as you'd expect, slower and pricier output. With this new release, we are in a rare and exciting situation. My testing shows that Nano Banana 2 delivers pro-level quality, sometimes even beating it, but at a much cheaper price and faster speed. Usually, in the AI space, paying more equals better results, for example, using Claude Opus for complex coding. But Nano Banana 2 gives us state-of-the-art image generation at a fraction of the cost, making it the new default for most use cases. Google is seriously flexing its deep pockets here. It's a genuine two-way race right now between GPT Image and the new Nano Banana 2, at least until we see GPT Image 2 and Nano Banana 2 Pro in the coming months. Let's test those claims one by one. First off, Google says Nano Banana 2 can tap into web search results to ground images in reality, just like Nano Banana Pro. Just a quick note, for these tests I'll be using Google Gemini and Google AI Studio to compare the new model to the older versions of Nano Banana. Let's start with a globally recognized landmark. So, I asked Google Gemini to generate an image of Taipei 101 with surrounding buildings in current weather conditions. Now, for older models, including Nano Banana, that wouldn't be really possible. The AI would just hallucinate the weather conditions because it is not able to look up the factual information. However, with Nano Banana 2, just like with the Pro model, we can ask for real-time information, and that should be represented directly in the visual. In this prompt, I even specified that it should use available images online and real-time weather data to generate an accurate view of Taipei 101. We can already see loading Nano Banana 2, and that means that we are using the latest model. Beep, boop, 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 beep, beep. Okay, let's see what we got. So I see that the image here shows Taipei in a very warm 24 degrees Celsius and a weather forecast that doesn't seem right to me. I need to double check it against an actual weather forecast. And yeah, this does not seem right. In reality, it is 19 degrees and cloudy with light rain. However, Gemini hallucinated the weather in Taipei. So what has caused this hallucination? Well, we're using the fast model, which means Google Gemini is generating an image right away without spending any time to look up actual factual information. To solve this, we would need to switch to the thinking model. So if I'm in a new conversation, again, I use the same prompt, but I switch to the thinking model. Now, it has actually looked up the real weather forecast, and we can double check with the real forecast. Let's try out the same prompt in Nano Banana, Nano Banana Pro, and ChatGPT. If I try the same exact prompt with the original Nano Banana, I get a refusal from the model because it cannot look up this sort of information online. And I get a very generic image, where the model is essentially hallucinating the weather conditions and even hallucinating the source of that information. If we run the same prompt through Nano Banana Pro, we get something very similar to Nano Banana 2. If we run the same prompt through ChatGPT, it writes a Python script, two Python scripts, and creates an image. Okay, let's download the image. Okay, so it took an actual image of Taipei 101 it found online, and it added the weather information in the top right corner. The information is accurate, so that's good, but the image does not match the weather conditions. So it's not really what we were shooting for. I'll give ChatGPT one more try, but I will make it explicit that I want it to generate an image. Okay, ChatGPT on its second attempt got something quite a bit better. However, the 7-day forecast is not actually for the next 7 days, so I'm starting to doubt whether it really looked up the real information or hallucinated some parts of it. Either way, Nano Banana Pro and Nano Banana 2 are the winning models in this category. If you're enjoying the breakdown and would like to see more videos on tools like this, subscribe to the channel for weekly releases. Let's give these models a real challenge. Now they will need to perform a web search to look up latest news online and generate a magazine spread type of image showing the latest headlines. Let's see how these models handle that. First, I started with ChatGPT, and the results were interesting, to say the least. ChatGPT did the usual AI hallucination type of mistake, where it generated very generic news headlines, clearly not something that it looked up online. So I gave ChatGPT a few more tries. In its second attempt, I switched to ChatGPT's thinking model, and I told the model that it has plenty of time to look up the information and get this right. However, the generated image is again extremely generic, no actual news being covered. A fail for me. Then I provided the same prompt to Nano Banana, the older model from last year, and it failed in a different way. It was sufficiently self-aware that it would not be able to fulfill this request, so it refused it outright. Let's move to Nano Banana Pro. I think it should do a much better job with this task. So we can see that we have headlines such as US-Iran tensions escalate, and Supreme Court strikes down tariffs. Clearly recent events and very well prioritized. Let's move on to Nano Banana 2 and see how it handles this task. If I provide the same prompt to it in Google's Gemini, I get a pretty good image with seemingly relevant news. I need to squint my eyes to see these headlines, but these are actual headlines. If you don't look too close, it looks pretty good. However, it is at a very low resolution. Nano Banana 2 now supports everything from ultra-wide panoramic to ultra-tall vertical formats and resolutions from 512 pixels up to 4K for print. The low resolution mode is great for rapid iteration, where you don't need high res until you have nailed the concept. However, you cannot choose the resolution yourself, at least not through their Gemini user interface. Here's a pro tip: you will need to switch to something like Google AI Studio or third-party services like Replicate or Fal AI to control the resolution, aspect ratio, and the like. I switched over to Google AI Studio so I could generate high-resolution images with Nano Banana 2. This time, it created images which are much higher resolution, and they have real headlines, real news events. However, in text quality, it is very comparable to Nano Banana Pro. So if you zoom in up close, you can still see imperfect text rendering and artifacts. In this attempt, we can see that it used web search to figure out latest news. However, it failed to correctly represent the current US president. In the US State of the Union section, it shows a picture of Joe Biden, which I'm pretty sure is no longer the US president. That's because, to some degree, it lives in the past. It has a knowledge cutoff of January 2025. This is getting closer and closer to being production ready. We really push these models to the limits. Both Pro and the second version are clearly better than ChatGPT and the older Nano Banana model. And if you know what you're doing, with some prompting and review loops, it is definitely usable. Just don't expect miracles. Nano Banana 2 is a highly practical upgrade, especially for anyone creating content across different platforms. You can see this across all the examples I showed. Nano Banana 2 matches Nano Banana Pro in image quality. The tech magazine spread looked like a real magazine, and the Taipei example looked like a photo. With some prompt engineering and a few more tries, we could get even better results. And this is running at flash speed, meaning you can get these results in seconds, not minutes. There is no contest between Nano Banana and Nano Banana 2. The surprising part is that we are getting a state-of-the-art model for half the price of Nano Banana Pro. Let's get back to the examples I have shown previously. There are a few tips. First, if the model needs to do any thinking about the scene or look up real information, choose the Gemini's Thinking or Pro model. I also recommend mentioning you want the model to look up-to-date information online before generating a visual. Second, the model now has a dynamic thinking effort setting, but it is not available through the Gemini interface. It might be a bit reluctant to perform web searches and to think through the prompt. I recommend mentioning that this is an important task and that the model has plenty of time to get it right. This classic prompt engineering tip still applies. Third, if you want a vertical or a horizontal image, specify an exact aspect ratio in your prompt, such as 16:9, 4:3, or one of the new and more extreme ratios, such as 1:4 or even 8:1. Fourth, we cannot control the resolution through the Gemini chat interface. So for real production use, I recommend using Gemini AI Studio or services like Replicate and Fal AI, where you can pay based on your usage. And lastly, the model is better at real-life places and real-world objects because now it has access to image search. Nano Banana Pro had access only to web search. So here's my take. Nano Banana 2 is a slight upgrade in quality, but a massive upgrade considering its price and speed. The fact that the cheapest model is the best model just blows my mind. Previously, I would need to use a cheap model for quick iteration and switch to a better model for the final version. Now, I can just use the same model. The fact that it has web and image search makes it my default model for image generation. Does that mean that it's the best model for every task? Well, nearly. In my experience, GPT Image 1.5 is still a bit better at style transfer tasks, where it needs to exactly match a provided visual style. Nano Banana 2 is aggressively closing the gap in almost every other category, and doing it at a fraction of the cost. That leaves me wondering, what will the next generation of models bring? I expect GPT Image 2 and Nano Banana 2 Pro to be released in a month or two, so subscribe if you don't want to miss out. Meanwhile, the model is live right now, so go try it out. Let us know your results in the comments. Another tool that is exploding in popularity right now is Claude Code. Anthropic recently released Claude Opus 4.6 and introduced agent teams, which is completely changing people's workflows and will likely be the new industry standards for coding. We have made a full video on it over here, so go check it out. See ya in the next one.